Now today's coverage of the situation in Yugoslavia from Serbian TV in Belgrade. It's about 40 minutes.
You're watching the primetime news of Radio Television Serbia. Good evening. President of the Republic, President Milosevic, received the Duma President Gennady Seleznov, who together with the distinguished member of the parliament, Nikolai Ryzhkov, came to the visit of our country. Russia condemns the evil aggression of NATO against Yugoslavia and demands that it immediately stop, said Gennady Seleznov. He expressed the support of the Russian people to Yugoslavia and their sincere solidarity for the Yugoslavs. The duty of Russia is to give to the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia all help, stressed Gennady Seleznov. Russia wants to contribute to the stop of this mindless war of NATO against Yugoslavia because this war endangers the international peace and stability, which already causes unforeseen consequences regarding future developments in the world. The aggression to Yugoslavia truly endangers Russian interests as well, and NATO has to obey our demand that it stop with this war. Stressing our insistence on a political and peaceful resolution of the problem in Kosovo, President Milosevic said that NATO wants to bomb our country in order to occupy it, which has made citizens leave their homes in Kosovo. Despite the insistence of the aggressors that this bombing was essentially in order to stop a humanitarian catastrophe in Kosovo, it's a fact that this bombing caused a catastrophe. We have a priority duty, which is to defend our country. Yugoslavia will also persevere in its insistence to find a peaceful political solution with a direct negotiation within Serbia. This war that has been imposed is against all citizens of Yugoslavia, as well as all ethnic groups in Kosovo. This is a terrible evil against all of the people of our sovereign country. President Milosevic thanked to the Russian people and their leadership to the solidarity with the people of Yugoslavia and the opposition to this NATO aggression, and stressed that our people will defend our country. We are convinced that our resistance to this violence and the jailers be joined by all of the progressive world in order to defend freedom and common sense. Milomir Minic also attended, also the Minister of Foreign Affairs Živadin Jovanović, as well as the Russian Ambassador Yuri Kotov. The President of the Republic of Serbia, Milan Milutinovic, received today the soccer players from AIK and the Belgrade team Partizan regarding a humanitarian game in Belgrade. Together with the soccer players from Greece, there were Greek parliamentarians, representatives of various political parties. President Milutinovic greeted the initiative of the Greek soccer players to have a friendly soccer game in Belgrade for peace and with a message to the world to stop this mindless destruction of Yugoslavia. In defense of our freedom and independence, our people will persevere against all difficulties, looking for a political and peaceful resolution for Kosovo. We are grateful to the friendly Greek people, to their support and solidarity with the Serbian people who are defending themselves from the NATO aggressors. This mutual friendship will be manifested in today's friendly game in Belgrade, stressed President Milutinovic in his discussion with the soccer players. The President Gennady Seleznov of the Russian Duma was received by the City Council and City Council representatives Milomir Minic and Srđan Božović. This is what Mr. Gennady Seleznov expressed for the television Serbia. You know very well what's the situation. You were in Novi Sad, you were in the hospitals, you saw what those gangsters did in Europe at the end of the 20th century. Yes, we see how they're establishing the New World Order, how it looks when one center governs the world, the center called Washington. I would like for the American politicians to come here and see what's the price of their political decisions that they have established with their violent actions in NATO. They have destroyed factories, they have no military connection whatsoever. There have been destroyed bridges, a bridge that's called Freedom, a factory that's called Freedom. Obviously, this is how they understand freedom in America, in NATO. The destruction of the little town of Aleksinac, where there are only coal mines. There are no military facilities there. This is how, in this moment, These are the so-called reasons for NATO bombardment, and they have been completely disclosed. This is not about peace in Kosovo and about opposing the Yugoslav army. Thanks to this bombing, now Kosovo is being deserted by thousands and thousands of people. The entire responsibility should be held by the NATO aggressors. All of the countries of Western Europe is now upset because they don't know how to receive these refugees, how to give food, how to provide nourishment for them, how to provide camps. First, they created huge expenses to organize this aggression, and now they have extreme expenses in order to save the refugees from death. I don't know how rich these countries are and these people who are spending billions of dollars for this mindless action, which they have begun now in Yugoslavia.
Gennady
Nikolaevich, those who lost Second World War, or the war that you call the war for freedom, they have begun again. These are the Germans. And together with them, even our allies from the Second World War. Unfortunately, that's the case. I think this exactly says what is a unipolar world. We were always against one side. We said, what is the purpose of NATO if we don't have the Warsaw Pact anymore? NATO said they were a political organization rather than military, but now they have really shown their real doctrine. It's a police organization that wants to implement its forces even outside the zones of their regional interests. Yugoslavia is not a member of NATO. It never sought assistance from NATO, but still it now lives through an aggression. This is a totally hypocritical policy of double standards about who should do what. At the same time, Europe is being shown who is the boss in the world. I really want those Europeans who have not accepted this role of a sacrificial lamb to understand what they're doing. I hope no NATO soldier will come to the territory of Yugoslavia. Nobody will come out alive. This is a promise from the Yugoslavs. And this is why I'm saying that the mothers and fathers of all of those soldiers who don't know why they're here, they really have to stand up and say in protection of their sons, stop. Yugoslavia and the Serbian people are expecting the voice of the Russian people, of these Orthodox, brotherly people. Yes, the voice of Russia is very audible. We don't hear the voice of Russia only in Yugoslavia, but around the world. Russia is fighting to get an extraordinary session of the Security Council of the UN. At all international meetings, they're asking the question, why this unjustifiable war against Yugoslavia? Everywhere, there'll be diplomatic missions of Yugoslavia, of Russia, that will be much stronger. We are actively negotiating with many countries of the world. We want to basically discuss this question on the 101st session of the Interparliamentary Union in Belgium, and we will fight for the immediate cessation of this aggression. Once upon a time, when they were destroying both Soviet Union and Yugoslavia, many people said, including in Moscow, the general rehearsal will be in Yugoslavia and the main show in Russia. Now Soviet Union doesn't exist, but history seems to repeat itself. I don't believe that anybody from NATO countries will try in any way to come to the territory of Russia. We are capable, despite our current economic difficulties, to give every resistance to any kind of aggression, resistance that will be remembered for centuries. If anybody is counting on essentially trying to see how things will turn out by testing the ground elsewhere, they're making a big mistake. I believe that this war will actually unify our people, people that were previously within the Soviet Union, because this war has shown that there must be a common defense doctrine and that we should not believe any of those peace initiatives coming from Washington. These are the cameras of the Radio Television Serbia. You answered several of our questions. If you would like, could you tell our viewers what's your primary message? In the first place, I am fascinated by your courage. We citizens of Russia are absolutely fascinated by your national spirit. Today in Russia, we have no more debates among the parties. All of the people are trying to help Yugoslav people to win in this just war. You have to hold on to your position. Don't lose yourselves to panic. Know that Russia will never give up its Serbian brethren. Once again, I would like to repeat. We are working on all fronts, regardless of our own internal problems in Russia. Trust me, lion's share of our time goes to the regulation of these questions in Yugoslavia. I don't doubt that whoever tries to fight against your sovereignty or occupy your country, that you will really resist in a proud way. Nobody should doubt this in the world. I wish you a lot of courage, patience, and optimism. We will have another, better life, especially if we begin to accept the idea of the alliance of all Slavic states. Thank you very much. We await for you in a better situation. Thank you. The site of the evil actions in Novi Sad committed by the criminals from NATO was visited by the two Russian representatives. The guests from Russia were escorted by Milutin Stojanovic from the Defense Committee of the federal government, came to visit the bridges that were destroyed by the NATO fascists. You can see the traces of the NATO cruelty. Gennady Seleznev made the following statement. We saw two destroyed bridges that are not strategic objects. This is completely mindless bombing on part of NATO. I don't know why the Danube Commission is silent, because there is no navigation on Danube anymore. It should be said that whatever was destroyed along Danube should be repaired by those who did it. The representatives of Russia also visited the refinery that was once again attacked by the NATO aggressors, and they really were convinced that the target of these NATO criminals are civilian objects rather than military goals. The guests from Russia also visited the monument to all the victims of the Novi Sad slaughter from 1941, close to the old bridge that was destroyed. 57 years ago, fascists threw under this bridge thousands of Serbs and Jews. These bridges are a lot more than simple civilian objects. This is an indelible picture that will always remind us of how we can never forget the evil deeds of fascists. The president of federal government, Momir Bulatovic, received the president of the Russian Duma, Gennady Seleznev. Gennady Seleznev stressed again that the Russian Federation condemns the NATO aggression against the friendly and sovereign country of Yugoslavia. Seleznev also stated that this brutal aggression has to stop immediately. He added that the Russian Federation will continue to give humanitarian and other assistance to Yugoslavia. President Bulatovic stressed that the people of Yugoslavia really understand the determination of the Russians and the support of the government as well as the people. But faced with this cowardly aggression carried out with the most superior technological means, a country that doesn't endanger anyone else but defends itself, the people of Yugoslavia expect greater determination in Russians' attitude. They feel that a strong position of the Russians can be decisive on stopping the bombing and respect for international law and order. Yugoslavia will defend itself, but with the help of the progressive countries, it will be done more easily and with less victims. This was stressed by the President Momir Bulatovic. Government of Republic of Serbia at the session, presided by Mirko Marjanovic, stated that the agricultural work is conducted successfully according to the government program and the planning. The farmers have been issued gasoline, and all the counties have been given with sufficient seeds, fertilizers, insecticides, and spare parts for their machines. The government decided that those farms and companies that are unable to purchase the fuel for the spring season, they can get it through a barter for their agricultural products of 1999, including some livestock. The Republic's Committee for Reserves will conduct the barter of the fuel and these products with protected prices at the day of the delivery of the fuel. The President of the Serbian Assembly, Dragan Tomic, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs discussed today with the delegation of the Czech Parliament, headed by the Czech Communist Party leader Vojtech Filip. It was supported that the announcement of the federal and Republican government on the unilateral ceasefire should be reaffirmed. It is also supported that together with the Albanian representatives, headed by Mr. Ibrahim Rugova, there should be a political agreement that would be the basis for a permanent arrangement regarding the autonomy of Kosovo within Yugoslavia. The delegation of the Czech parliamentarians condemned the NATO aggression and expressed full support for the Yugoslavia struggle, which is a struggle for peace and stability in Europe. The airplanes of the evil NATO alliance bombarded last night and this morning civilian targets in Pristina, Novi Sad, Niš, Čačak, Lučani, Sombor, Sremska Mitrovica, Ruma and Podgorica. Pristina suffered the greatest damage. About half an hour after midnight, the criminals led by the United States hit the very center of Pristina, the post office and the social security office. They have destroyed almost an entire neighborhood, several tens of houses. This is a much worse Nazism than what was in 1941. These destructive missiles destroyed the very center of Pristina. They have destroyed some of the oldest houses in this city, in several of the oldest streets. The explosions destroyed many family houses and shops. So far, under the rubble, they have found 9 dead people. They're trying to excavate 6 more, known for certain to have been left here. Tonight, the evil missiles burned one house to the ground, a Turkish family with 3 daughters. It is suspected that many more civilians are dead. This evil destruction was great, and this is why it's necessary to have some more time to establish all the victims. Many people have been injured as well. Within the very center of Pristina, a whole neighborhood has been destroyed. The main post office, the social security office, and the city pharmacy. There is a lot of material damage also to the headquarters for the regional government, to Invest Bank and National Bank. Huge damage was suffered by the medical center as well. In the center of the village, Jovic, there were many missiles of the aggressor planes that hit the storage facility of the fuel company. The explosions that followed damaged houses in all of the village, especially the school and the dormitory with refugees from former Yugoslav republics. Many cars have been damaged as well, and the consequences of this considerable evil will be huge, especially regarding the environment and the population of Pristina. And this is the goal of these fascist criminals. The site of this NATO aggressor was visited by Zoran Anđelković, the president of the Temporary Executive Council of Kosovo. These inhuman criminals, with respect for nothing, hit last night the Orthodox cemetery in Pristina. This beast in human form sent bombs to destroy the memory of those who had rested here in peace, we thought eternal peace. In the previous attacks, they damaged the chapel of the cemetery, and now they have fully destroyed more than 20 graves. The assault on the northwestern industrial zone in Niš will be discussed somewhat later in the news. Around 5:30 this morning in Novi Sad, they extinguished the fire around the refinery that was bombed a few hours earlier. The destroyed facilities of the Novi Sad refinery were once again target of the beastly and cowardly attack of the NATO alliance. The missiles with strong explosions appeared around 2:40 this morning in the capital of Vojvodina. 2 hours after the explosion, the huge fire was extinguished. There are no human victims, but a huge material damage. It is obvious that the goal of these barbarians was primarily to create human victims, because we know that people work here, to cause a huge material damage and a humanitarian catastrophe long term, and that they really don't care whether they'll cause an ecological catastrophe hitting both of these refineries that are almost in the city or at the edge of the city. The civil attacks show that the American aggressor is hitting all of the people of our country. Edi Čokolovački, we will defend our country. We know why we do it and what we do. We have the truth, law and justice on our side. During the morning attacks on Novi Sad, air defense systems acted successfully, destroying one missile that was intended for the sole surviving bridge in Novi Sad. Yesterday, Aleksinac, today Novi Sad. This morning, around 3 o'clock in the morning, these criminals from the sky attacked the civilian targets within Vidovdan neighborhood. Within this neighborhood, there are no military objects. There are no facilities of any strategic interest close by, only houses, apartment buildings, and sleeping people who were woken up by the beastly mad aggressor from the sky, and two destructive detonations, leaving rubble behind, and this house is fruits of much labor. The target of the monsters from the North Atlantic Alliance was also the school Duško Radović in the Vidovdan suburb. According to unofficial data, fortunately, there are no human victims despite the rain of death. The president of the Executive Council, Vojvodina Boško Šarović, together with his colleagues, received Viorel Kojfan, president of the Forum for Regional Cooperation, Danube Kiš Moriš Tiša, and a Hungarian official from Temișoara. Surveying the destroyed Freedom Bridge, Viorel Kojfan stressed that he's really moved by the destruction of bridges because they're built to connect and not to separate people. Aside from this huge damage to the citizens, there is also great damage to the navigation of Danube. When we return to Temișoara, we will organize ourselves to help these people whose spirit we admire. At the press conference, we will tell the Romanian people that what we see on Romanian TV, like Sky TV, is not the real situation. Said to the journalists, this president of the Association from Romania, Viorel Kojfan, wishing the citizens of Novi Sad and Yugoslavia a peaceful Easter holiday. Today, on the 7th of April, as of 2 o'clock in the afternoon, citizens of Novi Sad decided to preserve the bridge, the last remaining bridge, with their own bodies. Žeželj bridge, they will defend it with their bodies until the entire cessation of this aggression of the NATO alliance against Yugoslavia.
Jugoslavia!
As noted earlier, the industrial zone of Niš was bombed this morning around 4:45, damaging the steel mills of the Niš machine factory. Several other factories, the equipment of EPTIP factory and Jedinstvo factory. On other locations, severe damage to Black Signal factory, and one of the guards securing the site was injured. There are damages to other factory facilities as well to the student dormitory. In the attack on the northwestern industrial zone of Niš at 4:45 this morning, the pump factory Jastrebac was heavily damaged. The metal object blown by the explosion went through the roof, breaking it before landing on the ground floor of a residential house about 500 yards away. The storage facility of Elektrotehna was destroyed also by a missile that created a crater of 10 meters in diameter and 5 meters deep. The buildings of Elektrotehna and Fidelinka are partly destroyed. Severe new damage has been afflicted to the university buildings, the technological faculty. The consequences are visible on the grammar school Vuk Karadžić, as well as on the main bus terminal, on the Niš fortress founded by the ancient Romans. Close to the school, there is a Baptist church whose building was also severely damaged, as well as many private houses within these zones. The damage would have been greater if this attack had not been opposed in a decisive manner and courageously by the precise counterattack of the units of the Third Army that destroyed several enemy missiles. 2 weeks ago, the children from the village of Medoševac near Niš were sitting in this school and following their instructions. It is very difficult to say when the class is violently disrupted by the aggressor that cowardly throws bombs on civilians will ever continue. None of the school buildings here have been without damage. Similar fate for many of the village houses. Many of the locals say that the explosions of the enemy bombs have damaged the windows on all houses. In some of the houses, it's impossible to live anymore. There are also very few roofs that have not been severely damaged. It is fortunate that there are no human victims. We shall build new houses, even more beautiful. We shall not allow to be broken. Last night, 14th day of aggression, there were 2 more attacks in Lučani by the missiles. The first time at 8:35 and subsequently at 11 p.m. These missiles continued. The destruction began earlier. They attacked Energana, a vital facility, as well as the production plant for water pipes, gas pipes, and underground phone lines. Fortunately, there were no human victims or injured people, but there is not a single residential building or a business building with all windows intact. And there are often certain windows and doors out of their frames. Especially big damage was suffered by the kindergarten. So far, there have been 12 victims taken out of the rubble from the center of Aleksinac's target of the NATO alliance the previous night. 16 private houses have been fully destroyed, and more than 400 apartments are no longer livable. Those are primarily in 3 apartment buildings with 80 apartments each. The Executive Council of Aleksinac agreed last night to decide to declare the 7th of April as a day of sorrow in Aleksinac region because of the evil bombing and the victims in this city on Moravnica. At about 11:35, the evil missiles of NATO criminals hit Montenegro. Near the Podgorica airport Golubovci, there were 3 strong explosions. Simultaneously, there was a decisive response of the anti-aircraft units of Yugoslavia, making the starry sky above Podgorica a real battlefield. What are the consequences of this attack? It hasn't been determined yet. But at the same time, around 9 p.m., the anti-aircraft units of Yugoslavia acted. This happened immediately upon noting the NATO planes in the airspace. The cowards of the NATO alliance fled. Afterwards, according to the information that we have received in the firefighting headquarters, there were 2 explosions on a hill near Podgorica along the road to Kolashin and further towards Belgrade. Whether there was a plane that fell, we still don't know. But at the same time, in the village Oshiba near Kolashin, there was a sound of a plane explosion, and this explosion lit the sky above. We should also add that this happened only half an hour after the notorious Tony Blair, in an interview that was shown on television of Montenegro, claimed that NATO is sparing Montenegro. The press office of the command of the Second Army of Yugoslavia stated that both of these Aprils, from 1941 and 1999, will be remembered as dark periods of history in which forces of evil tried to conquer our country. Once upon a time, our cities and villages were attacked by German planes, Messerschmitts. Today, Clinton destroys our country with missiles and bombs. With these mindless Western threats of an even greater bombing of military and civilian targets, the British Prime Minister Tony Blair promised to Montenegro protection and help, stressing that its present attitude ensures, quote, good future. How sincere he was shown by the bombing of the exclusively civilian targets near Podgorica last night, only a few hours after the interview of the same Blair on Montenegrin television. The bombs fell in Tajbaba, in Jovic, where there is close by a hotel, seismological institute, apartment buildings. This is why from the freedom-loving people we expect support, and we send this message. Just as in 1941, we know we can defend our country. Our power is our unflinching will and unity of the Serbian and Montenegrin people, states the announcement of the command of the Second Army. At the border crossings towards Republic of Macedonia, General Jankovic and Globočica, as well as towards Albania, in Vrbnica, there are no more lines of Albanians that were looking to evacuate because of the merciless attacks of the Alliance of Death. Perhaps it was the meeting between President Milosevic and Dr. Ibrahim Rugova, as well as their joint agreement to resolve the problems in the southern Serbian province in political manner. The Albanians also returned to their homes because of the appeal of the federal and the republic's governments. One of these unnaturally long lines from the border crossing towards Pristina was recorded by the TV Pristina around 11 o'clock last night. This was also recorded by journalists of foreign stations, including those that are aggressor countries. The criminals of the NATO alliance wanted to exploit this misery caused by themselves in order to justify the continued aggression on Yugoslavia. But this is a deceit, and this was disclosed by the Albanians themselves, whose homes had been destroyed by the evil army that had destroyed entire neighborhoods. They stress that they will continue to live in Kosovo with their neighbors, the Serbs, Turks, and members of other communities. The staff of the Supreme Command announced that the rage of these conquerors dreaming of a new world order grows with every day. Contrary to their expectations, the Serbian and the Montenegrin people did not succumb to their invasion by missiles. The losses of our people are growing. Many products of the labor and sweat of many generations are gone. Our determination for a freedom in an independent state gets only stronger. Unable to conquer us with the cowardly technology of distance killing, the enemy prepares new kind of aggression. Unless stopped, this will bring to all Balkan countries even more blood. Out of the refugees expelled by their bombing, the self-appointed world policeman recruits the soldiers for the great Albanian utopia, arming them and preparing them for sacrifice in the planned ground aggression against Yugoslavia. Their families have been taken to be temporarily accommodated until they're militarily and psychologically prepared for the so-called safe return to Kosovo. It is announced that the return of Albanians to their homes would be accompanied by armed NATO forces and reorganized forces of KLA. This fully disclosed alliance between US and these terrorist organizations should save in this new phase of aggression the US, British and other aggressors, that is to say, save their soldiers from dying in this totally risky and unjustifiable ground offensive. The renewed manipulation in the media about the suffering of the Albanians and the ethnic cleansing serves only to prepare psychologically for this new phase of the aggression. These plans inflict an even deeper, deadlier suffering to this vulnerable region. Use of refugees as living shields is not only against international law, but prologue to a general inter-ethnic slaughter among all of the people that are endangered by the idea of Greater Albania. If the Washington pretenders who want to have world supremacy haven't learned anything from their experience with the Afghanistani Taliban, and now they're trying to turn Southeast Europe into a new battleground, all of the responsibility will be with them and those who decide to row the same boat. Our defense will use all possible means to defend its country and its soil. They have always defeated many more powerful enemies. This was announced by the Information Office of the Supreme Command. Strong explosions have been felt in Macedonia today as well, bringing more worry and fear. While we're preparing this television report, close to Skopje, the capital of Macedonia, there were two strong explosions that shook the windows in the downtown Skopje. This is a missile from the NATO alliance close to the village Siričino on the Žeden mountain. You can see from the signs that it belongs to the Canadian aviation. This was recorded by the television station Kiss from Tetovo. The reporters say that the explosions could be heard close to Struga, Tetovo, on Šara mountain, close to Kumanovo and close to Skopje. The police is searching the area, but so far they have no official information, except that the Prime Minister Ljubčo Georgijevski confirmed that the missiles are also falling on the territory of Macedonia. Especially strong explosion was felt around the village of Jablanica, Vevčani. In the Struga region, there were also broken windows on some houses. Some of the witnesses from Šara mountain say that the strong explosion was probably caused by a fall of a plane of the NATO alliance that had been hit in Serbia, probably, and that has probably fallen close to the skiing resort on the Šara mountain. People close to various mountains nearby say that in this part of Western Macedonia, there have been several explosions. Various parties, organizations of citizens in Macedonia continue to express their abhorrence of this horrible aggression against Yugoslavia. MAK, the Conservative Party, has sent a letter to Javier Solana asking for immediate stop to the bombing and a peaceful resolution of the Kosovo crisis. This party will organize a series of protests to condemn this aggression. These are protests under the title Macedonia Without Foreign Occupation. The Parliamentary Liberal Democratic Party demanded of the government to defend the policy that Macedonia will not be used as a ground base for attacks. The Socialist Christian Party is also calling for all of the Kosovo Albanians who left their homes because of the fear of bombing return to their homes. This party also stresses that NATO and the whole alliance in US have really denied the claims of Yugoslavia that they will stop the aggression, which means that they're not interested in a peaceful resolution of Kosovo or return of the Albanians, but only in their conquering plans. The Socialist Christian Party also stresses that the United States behaves in a shameful way. Kosovo is an internal question of Serbia. The alliance has no place there. The Ministry of Information of the Republic of Serbia notifies that several associations of French-Serbian friendship and humanitarian organizations from Paris, Lyon, Strasbourg and Nantes notified the Ministry of Diaspora from Serbia that there have been several French soldiers that deserted through Bulgaria because they did not want to wage war against Serbian people who have been their friends for many years. They don't see the sense in this merciless war against the Serbian people in the sovereign country of Yugoslavia. For example, Jean-Max from Lyon stresses that while he was in Macedonia, that was the most idiotic period of his life, that he was constantly under stress that he was going to die in Kosovo. A soldier from Saint-Denis says that the drug mafia of the Albanians were selling drugs and the officers of NATO were trading with them. Another soldier from France says that he had been sent to sacrifice his life in Macedonia but doesn't know why. The big bosses are lying there, who knows where, far away. All of these French soldiers are afraid that they'll be liquidated. As we learned from the Ministry of Information of the Republic of Serbia, the American CIA falsified the site of the Republic of Serbia, www.serbiainfo.com, creating a parallel site on the provider tripod.com. And this site has been used for the most monstrous information of the internet users about the aggression. There are many more demonstrations in Austria, but before everything, let's talk about the meeting in Moscow. This is a classic example of computer crime. Tonight, it seems because of our good information that we received also by users of internet throughout the world, and they could see this information through the website www.info.com. The American criminal terrorists created a parallel site created a site, as you can see, with almost entirely same look and layout, as well as topics that are discussed by the site of the Ministry of Information of Serbia. But of course, on their side, they showed their forgeries and their evil intentions as real information of the Ministry of Information of Serbia. They simply just got rid of a dash within the name of our site and created a fake site called Serbia Info. And in this way, they're trying to deceive people around the entire world. We want to show all of the people that our address remains the same with the dash, and they can find the real information. And we shall undertake all the necessary measures in accordance with the laws that govern the computer network around the world. That such sites by these evil criminals in the computer realm who are trying to gain more media victories be stopped. We have learned that the provider for this site was in the US, and it's most often used by CIA and the Department of Defense and the Navy of the US. We know it's very clear who is behind this. But this kind of computer terrorism is something new, but it's obvious that they are afraid of the correct information and the truth. And regardless of everything, I'm sure that with the truth we shall win. Once again, as I mentioned, there are many protests around the world against this incredibly criminal aggression against Yugoslavia. As a protest against this aggression of NATO and the merciless bombing of civilian targets, the Red Square of Moscow was the site of a huge protest for support to Yugoslavia, organized by the political movement Fatherland and joined by the Communist Party of the Russian Federation, as well as several few patriotic parties. The posters you could see is Russians are with you, Serbs. NATO, further away from Yugoslavia. Kosovo is Serbian. Criminals, history will be your judge. Let's keep the peace in Europe. The participants in the meeting demanded an immediate stop to the bombing and the merciless behavior of NATO, as well as Russia's activation in a political resolution of the crisis and support to the people of Yugoslavia. Members of the Italian Green Party protested in front of the NATO bases in Aviano, Italy. The demonstrators carried a big poster. It was written, "Ban the bombs, peace in Kosovo." Two of the demonstrators tied themselves to the link to the fence. One of the participants attacked an American soldier. Italian policemen soon came to the scene and arrested the demonstrators. We shall tell our brothers that we are always with them, even in this most difficult period for all of us. Throughout our country, there are protest concerts even today where citizens are speaking against the aggressor's attack on Yugoslavia.
Srce svoje nesebično daruješ. Beograde, 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 tvoj zagrljaj i ljubav žele svi. Bila sam u Pragu i Londonu.
I have been in Prague I have been in Prague and London. I've been to Athens and the internal Rome. I've seen Naples and Verona. I've seen the sunshine on Crete. I've seen all the riches. But nowhere have I found what my beloved city possesses. My Belgrade has a heart, and within its heart, pure love. Belgrade opens its arms to everyone, gives joy, the same joy to everyone. I love Paris. Prague will always be a golden town. I respect them, but my love is given only to my city. My dear, beloved Belgrade. We are telling everyone, we will never give up Serbia, we'll never give up Kosovo. Long live Serbia, Yugoslavia, until victory.
At 9 a.m. on